Hey guys, welcome back to another The Unofficial A&R video. Today I want to focus on something which recently happened, that being the Frank Ocean Coachella controversy. Now I don't want to rehash too much of what happened just because everybody pretty much knows already, and the events of the show aren't so much the focus of this video. But just to put it briefly, for those of you who don't know, Frank Ocean was meant to be headlining Coachella for both weekends. It was going to be his first performance since 2017, so a lot of people were waiting for this moment because Frank is an artist who is very quiet. He's not known for being the most engaged entertainer out there. He takes his time with literally everything that he does. You literally hear from him once in a blue moon, and if the public does hear from him or see him, then that is more than likely going to be his only appearance for the entire year. So this was an unmissable opportunity for a lot of people. Basically, long story short, Frank turned up to Coachella weekend one, late, unprepared, disengaged, and he was on stage for basically the same amount of time that the supporting acts of Coachella had. Some of his fans were very disappointed because he didn't perform a lot of his defining popular songs. He left early and then dropped out of weekend two, claiming that he had an ankle injury despite walking around on stage and not having any crutches or a cast. Now what I want to pay attention to in this video is the reception of the fans and whether or not we should have expected more from Frank Ocean. Obviously a lot of his fans are very disappointed in him, and that's a given, but I was very surprised to see the amount of people giving him a pass for essentially giving them nothing. I saw a lot of people on social media saying stuff like, oh well, you know, it's Frank. Did you expect him to do backflips or something? Like, no, we were just expecting him to at least sing live. But from what people seem to be saying, singing was very 50-50 during his set. There's so many videos where he doesn't even have a microphone in his hand and he's just lip syncing, which is very weird to me considering he's not doing much with his body. So I would expect him to at least be singing. Frank Ocean's music is so mellow, suspenseful, and slow in pace that it's crazy to believe that he found it difficult to potentially be the most simplistic headliner Coachella has ever seen. But the question that's on my mind is, have his fans allowed him to get away with this? Frank Ocean has developed a reputation where he is so elusive that his fans are programmed to believe that it is completely fine for him to do absolutely nothing. It's completely fine for him to ghost them for years on end, not give them any merchandise, not restock his vinyls, not give his fans a performance, not engage with his fans via social media like his counterpart Tyler does, not even give an interview for people to understand who he is as a human being. He is quote unquote mysterious, only on steroids, to the point where it could be concluded that he does it on purpose because it helps his image of him being this once-in-a-lifetime artist. Everybody knows that if you lay low, you tend to pique public interest in a sort of absence makes the heart grow fonder type of way, and people start relying on their attachment to nostalgia in order to fill the gaps that their favorite artist fails to fill for them whilst they wait for interaction. Whilst Frank Ocean fans are convincing themselves that this type of behavior is okay, everyone else is looking at him like, this is kind of unacceptable and not professional whatsoever. People like to say that Coachella is for rich kids, but we are grossly ignoring the fact that there are people who save up over time to be able to afford the expense that is Coachella. Believe it or not everyone is rich. Some people are just very careful with how they spend their money. People might be working minimum wage jobs and have to save for months in order to attend Coachella, afford accommodation, food, petrol if they're driving, and much more. If you're a Frank Ocean fan in that predicament, then you have every right to be upset with what he pulled at Coachella, especially if you bought a ticket literally just to see him, which is what a lot of people did. Frank Ocean hasn't given his fans a performance in years. Of course, people are going to come out to just see him. It's his first performance in forever. People want to be a part of something historic. But for Frank Ocean to come out dressed like he's going to a corner shop, setting up his stage so that people in the crowd can barely see him and they basically have to watch him on the screen, block his performance from being streamed so that his fans who didn't attend the festival can't view his performance, and to give a very blasé excuse for why he didn't put his all into his set, people have a right to be angry at that. And fans should be asking themselves whether this elusiveness is Frank just wanting to remain private and stay out of the spotlight so that he can continue to do normal stuff without much attention, or whether this is someone who is lazy and simply just doesn't care about the effects of his actions whatsoever. Hopefully it's not the latter, but given his behavior in the past week and the fact that he's had a very long time to figure out what it is that he wants to do for his performance, or if he even wants to go through with the performance in the first place, it's hard to believe that it's not the latter. Which brings me to another point that I've been seeing a lot from Frank's fans, which is the fact that Frank sadly lost his brother in a car accident 3 years ago, which could have contributed to his offset because he could still be grieving him, especially since he chose to headline because him and his brother have memories attached to Coachella. A lot of fans were telling the fans who were disappointed to have some compassion given his circumstances, which I get. There's no end to grieving. People can grieve for a very long time. It can be life-changing for some people, but I just feel like if the only thing that got you up on stage was your relative who passed away and loved Coachella, I just feel like you'd want to put on the most beautiful performance ever, almost treat it like a performance or like a parting gift to them, or even use it as therapy. Especially since Frank has been considered to be a quote-unquote avant-garde musician, whatever the hell that means. He could have done anything on stage and called it art, provided he actually sang his songs. I even heard that he planned on having an ice rink on stage with ice skaters, which could have been really beautiful, but for whatever reason, he pulled a very Frank Ocean move and decided at the very last minute that he didn't want it on stage. Why? Only God knows. And I think that's the problem with this whole Frank Ocean saga. Nobody ever knows why he does what he does. It feels like he just does shit for the sake of doing shit. And then in this instance, when it doesn't go to plan, he blames it on an ankle injury. And the fans are trying their best to accept that as a viable excuse. Despite many artists being able to perform with an injury, or in some women's cases whilst pregnant, it just didn't seem like he wanted to try. Frank Ocean's music doesn't require you to get up and bust any type of strenuous moves. In fact, when I saw clips of his set, I was so confused to see a security guard shaking ass to his music, because I was thinking there is not a single Frank Ocean song in the world which requires any type of frantic movement like this, until I realized that they were dancing to an alleged Jersey Club remix of his song, which confused me even more. Frank Ocean could have got up on stage and ran through his track list seamlessly, just him sat on a stool with his mic and his band. He could have gotten people to put their light on their phone on to create an ambient atmosphere. It could have all been very kumbaya-ish, but the fact that he didn't even try to do something like that is just crazy to me. And the fact that his fans are justifying his actions just screams Stockholm Syndrome. I was even shocked to hear from fans of his that this is just typical Frank, and that we shouldn't expect his behavior to all of a sudden change just because of Coachella. Once again, this response was very bizarre to me, because how do we continuously justify the non-actions of someone whose job is to perform? Which further begs the question of whether or not Frank Ocean actually cares about giving his fans what they dream of, bearing in mind that performing is a part of his job, and whether his fans are just way too lenient with him. To me, what Frank Ocean did last week is no different than turning up to work and only doing some of the jobs that you need to do for the day. Half of those jobs that you succeeded in doing being you turning up to work. Frank Ocean behaved as though him showing his face on stage was all that he needed to do, which tells me that he feels comfortable doing that because his fans have made him believe that that's okay. Giving his fans nothing and knowing that they will go wild over it is a luxury that only a handful of artists get nowadays. And he definitely seems to be riding that wave until the wheels fall off. If your manager allowed you to come to work, do nothing, and still get paid, would you turn up to work the next day and suddenly start putting effort into your job? Probably not. Because you know that you don't have to do anything, and because of this, you don't respect your manager enough to try. You don't think it's necessary to give a good performance at work in exchange for your manager paying you, providing office facilities for you to do your work, food in the office, or whatever other benefits they might give you, because you know that no matter what kind of performance you give, your manager is still going to pay you. Frank Ocean knows that his elusiveness is what makes him money. He almost sees himself as an original art piece that increases in price as the years go on, despite nothing about the artwork changing. Frank Ocean knows that he doesn't have to do much and his fans will support, despite not getting much in return. He's kind of like a male OnlyFans person who gets paid a lot of money from people despite only showing like a picture of his feet every 3 months. And while some of his fans might be very disappointed in him and his behavior at and following Coachella, because of his fans' Stockholm syndrome and inability to call him out on his mistakes, all I can say is that everyone will forget about this disaster if and when he releases his next album. And then they'll be all the way back at square one. Well guys, that's all from me today. Let me know what you guys thought about this video. If you're a fan of Frank Ocean, do you think that his fans should be more upset at his performance, or do you think that it just wasn't that deep? Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at @theunofficialANR, and I will see you guys in the next video.